Noth Glibber, hi friends. Darth Momo here. Today, I wanted to do something just a little different. Um, we kind of live in a day where Star Wars it's interesting, right? We have a lot of things about the franchise that are pretty non-controversial. Yeah, I agree with that. I accept that. I'm okay with that. Like if I came out and I said, "Hey, you know what? I like the original Star Wars trilogy." Most people aren't going to really bat an eye at that. Or, hey, you know what? I like Darth Vader. I like Obi-Wan Kenobi. I like Luke Skywalker. That's, okay, cool. Yeah, awesome. I agree. But then if I was to say something like, well, I think the prequels are better than the originals. Whoa, 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 what he said? No, 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 no. Or if I was to say something like, well, I think Rey is the best character. Rey's the best Jedi. No, 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 no. Or if I said something like, yeah, you know what? I think the prequels are better than the sequels. Whoa, 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 whoa. Or hey, yeah, you know what? I don't mind the sequels. They're okay. Not that I agree with any or all of those opinions, but to say something like that is just it's like an invitation for assault, and I just think that's crazy. And I also have opinions that are non-controversial and controversial, and today I just wanted to have a chat about a couple of opinions I have on the movies. I'm going to do two videos because while most of my film opinions of Star Wars I think are more or less um, kind of non-controversial or not as controversial, I have two opinions that I know are kind of controversial. So I'm gonna start with one of them today, and it's a shame because I know that for the at least for the near future, maybe forever, it's this point of view is always going to be pretty controversial. But you know what? I'm not a little sheep. I don't just believe what this person wants me to believe or that person wants me to believe. I'm secure enough in my opinion. I just wanted to have a little not a defense, but an explanation, I guess, an opportunity for understanding of why, even though I know it's extremely controversial, I like Star Wars: The Last Jedi. Um, I'm not gonna lie. I know this film has problems. I think though, as a Star Wars fan, you got to be realistic and take off the nostalgia blinders. That I think that with the exception of The Empire Strikes Back, I think every single one of these films has issues. Um, I think you got to be realistic with that. That's part of the franchise. They've had issues since the beginning of time. I think A New Hope has got tons of issues. I don't think it's a bad movie at all. I love the movie. I think it's a great movie. But I think it'd be a lie and a deception, not just to people you speak to, but a deception to yourself to say, yeah, it's a perfect movie, because it's not. And I think that even though The Last Jedi has a lot of flaws, I still love it. I think it's a fun ride. Um, there's lots of aspects I like about it. I'm going to start with what I think is the strongest. I think, we'll back that up a second. I think that we'll build up to that. There's lots of other things I do like about it. I do think it is a fun ride. I think both Force Awakens and Last Jedi are fun rides. I've got my problems with Force Awakens, but I still think it was a fun ride. And I think this one was a fun ride too. I think the score is still great. I don't know if I'd put it on par with the previous 7 entries of scores, but I wouldn't call it a bad score at all. I think it's a great score. I think this movie was acted phenomenally. I think everybody did great in their roles. Shout out to Mark Hamill especially, and Adam Driver. I think that some of the writing is a little bit questionable, but I think it's got a lot of good writing in it. I think I like the general story, themes, failure. Um, I think that's probably the biggest one is failure. Also, the idea of you don't have to be special to have a place in the story or to actually be important or matter. I think that was a great theme too. Or just the themes of learning from mistakes, I guess. Well, failure. um, the themes of what does it mean to be a legend, dealing with kind of legendary status. I thought there was a lot of good themes in the movie. I think the visuals were fantastic. I think it might actually be the best visually looking film in the saga. Um, and I mean, I think all in all, it's just got great action, a great story. But I think its strongest part and what attracts me the most about it is the characters. Um, I think the characters have great arcs and great chemistry, great story, great interaction with each other. Uh, well, as much as I could sit here and defend Finn's story, I do think he had the better story in The Force Awakens, but I still think his story makes sense. I don't know if it's the story I would have necessarily taken with it, but I think it was a natural conclusion or continuation of The Force Awakens. When we start Force Awakens, he's just a stormtrooper. We end The Force Awakens with him caring about Rey, but he's not in on the fight yet. So The Last Jedi takes him from caring about Rey to caring about the cause. Besides Finn, I think every main character in this movie had their best arc in this story. I think Rey in 7, I don't really know what her arc is, to be honest with you. And in 9, her arc is kind of a repeat of Return of the Jedi's arc for Luke, more or less a Return of the Jedi light, shall we say. But I think in this one, she's got the best arc. She's still, she's out in the cause now, right? She's here to find Luke, but she's not here just for the cause. She's here looking for herself. She's still trying to find out her past, her identity, who she is. She's still trying to find her place in this galaxy. Who is Rey? And Rey thinks that her parents and her legacy and her family is what define her. She thinks that to matter, to be important to this story that she's caught up in, she has to come from someone important or have a legacy. She thinks that she has to be some sort of, force wielder like Kylo Ren, or come from rebel heroes like Poe, or be someone famous like Luke or Han. And she learns throughout the story that she doesn't need to depend on anything or anyone else. No one else makes her destiny or her identity or her path forward. No one else makes her important other than her. And I think that was a great story. And, I have my thoughts on whether the trilogy should have really started Skywalker or not. But especially after the atrocity of The Rise of Skywalker, I think that this was unfortunately a story beat that we should have kept with. I think it was an impactful story beat. I think Poe had a great story in this one too, a great arc. In The Force Awakens, his arc doesn't really have one. In Rise of Skywalker, I think his arc was a natural continuation to this one, and I think he had a good arc in Rise of Skywalker, but I think this was kind of that melting piece, right? In Force Awakens, he's just a pilot guy, right? And that's how he starts in this movie. He's just the hotshot pilot ready to blow up as many TIE fighters as he needs to. And Leia is trying to get him to step out of that and step into a leadership role. She knows she's not going to be around forever. And, there needs to be someone to take her place. And she tries to take Poe under her wing and show her what leadership really means. And, he goes throughout most of the movie trying to be the hotshot pilot boy that's trying to be the hero, right? He's, as soon as Holdo comes onto the scene, he's like, hey, what's our plan? We got to go. And Holdo's like, hey, just give me a minute. She's in the middle of working on a plan, and Poe just shows up and goes, nah, okay, you don't got nothing? I'm taking matters into my own hands. I'm going to be the savior of the resistance. And through the course of failing and realizing that he almost made the situation worse, or in fact he did, he realizes that there's more to it than just making the big getaway or blowing up the ships. He realizes that, it's about being a leader. It's about, leading the people and leading to victory versus just blowing things up. It's about learning when to take ownership on the battlefield, about making sure people make it to fight another day. Now let's get to the spotlights of the movie. In my opinion, I think Kylo Ren is the best in this movie. I think that Kylo Ren's arc is just fun to watch in this movie. I like the idea that he's split. right? He's split down the middle. He doesn't know if he wants to be, I mean, he wants to be on the dark side, but he's struggling with that, right? He kills his father because he thinks that'll get him, that'll help him solidify his path on the dark side, and it does the opposite. He starts the movie, he's broken, right? He killed his father, he split his spirit to the bone. Now, then he lost to Rey, and he's like, great, now what? And it's throughout the course of the movie, he meets with Rey, and he begins to discover himself, and he decides to he digs further into the dark side, and sorry, I'm drawing a blank here, but he digs further into the dark side, and he's just constantly trying to go at it, and he kills Snoke and becomes the villain, and he doesn't want to go back to the light side. And I think he's really interesting to watch because he's so nuanced, right? There's so much to his character, and I love watching the arc. And I think my favorite arc in this one is Luke Skywalker. I know I'm dragging on here, so I'll try to be brief, but I personally am a sucker for broken people learning to become unbroken, right? And I understand the argument that this kind of flies in the face of his arc in Return of the Jedi, and I get that. I understand that, and I agree with that. His arc as its own thing, though, if we were excluding that, I think it's a beautiful arc. He's in a mess of his own making. He created the next Darth Vader because of a mistake he made, a brief, small, but giant mistake, and he blames himself. He thinks that the galaxy's better off without him. He hates to say, he wants to go out there and help his sister and, stop the First Order, but he knows that he's screwed up and is the reason they're at where they're at in the first place. And he decides he's got to go out there and, remove himself from the equation. And he's just out there on that island to die. And through his experiences with Rey and teaching Rey, as in between that, I should back up just a second. In between that, he knows the Jedi's history. He knows their flaws, and he knows that they were the problem. Not that they were the main problem, but they were a flawed, corrupt, organization. They caused a lot of issues. They're the reasons Darth Vader was created, and he grapples with that. They watched Darth Sidious rise and create the Empire right under their nose, and Luke knows that, and he thinks it's time for something better. There's a deleted scene that I think should have stayed in the movie where, these raiders come to take out the island natives, and Rey runs off to, as he tells her, he said, hey, a true Jedi would just leave it be. Rey's like, what? We got to go help him. And he says, why? So you put up a fight and they come back with more numbers in a month? Are you going to be here in a month? Yeah, I don't think so. And Rey runs off anyway, and she stumbles into what's actually just a party. And she's mad at Luke, and Luke kind of calls her out, and he says, that's what this galaxy needs. You ran off to go help. That's what they need, not this old, ancient religion. They need new, fresh blood. And he's so convinced that because of his mistake that everything else, it's all pointless. And slowly he begins to realize he was wrong, and that the Jedi still have a place in this galaxy, and the Jedi are a symbol of hope. He learns to overcome his mistakes. He messed up. Yeah, he made a mistake, but it's how you deal with that, how you move forward. And he moves forward, and after his conversation with Yoda, which I thought was beautiful, poetic, his final lesson he learns from his master, and he goes out in the most Jedi way possible. Yoda says in Empire that a Jedi uses the Force for knowledge and defense, never for attack. He didn't show up and just start going to blazes on the First Order. He showed up and he defended and stalled so the Resistance could escape. And by defying the First Order like that, as we see at the end of the movie, that tale spread and ignited hope again. And I know it's not explicitly said, but they clarify that in the extended material on the publishing side, but It's Luke's sacrifice that makes all the difference between nobody helping the Resistance in Last Jedi and everybody helping in The Rise of Skywalker. It was Luke's sacrifice that reignited hope. And I think it's really powerful when Leia, who's been fighting her whole life, the moment she gives up, the moment she realizes it's over, when no one comes to help, is finally the moment when Luke Skywalker shows up to save the day. It's awesome. I wish there wasn't that negative flaw of him trying to kill, even briefly, but kill Ben Solo, because otherwise his arc is just amazing in this movie. And I love it. And he shows up and he stalls, and then it ends with him staring at the twin suns. It's just a beautiful poetic send-off. You know, his journey started with him answering a projection of Leia calling for help, and his story ends with him sending a projection to answer Leia's call for help. It's awesome. I love it. If you don't like it, that's okay. I completely understand why someone might not like this movie. I am okay with that. I don't think you're a fan I don't think you're not a fan for not liking it. I don't think you're not a fan for liking it. It's art. It's subjective. These are opinions. These invoke feelings and emotions and joy. And, if you do like it or dislike it, all the power to you. But for me, I love this movie. And these are some of the reasons why I love this movie. If you don't like that, that's okay. I'm not here to tell you why you're right or wrong. I'm here to explain why I personally enjoy this movie. There's more I could sit here and talk about, but I'm not trying to make an hour-long video on this. That's been done. That's been done. I'm just here to give my simple thoughts, for the people that are interested. But with that said, thank you for joining in. I've got one more I'm going to do about one other controversial opinion of mine. At least it seems to be controversial. Maybe someday that'll completely change. I know it's starting to. But anyways, thank you for joining in. Darth Momo out, and may the Force be with you. Always. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. If you liked the video, comment down below and hit that like button. Oh, and check out some of my other videos. I'm sure you'll find them in the light.